Today on Voice of the Valleys, ladies and gentlemen, with the news of the passing, the stabbing to death in prison of Ian Watkins, ex-Lost Prophets frontman and one of the most depraved and disgusting child abusers of at least the 21st century, possibly in history. Many, myself included, have not only gone over his past string of abuses from 2008 to 2012, but also the numerous failures and willful ignorance of the South Wales Police. We're going to go through all of that, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very tragic story. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going through the new inclusive language guide that the civil service has put through, which says that non-white is a hate term amongst other things that are in the common discourse at the moment. And finally, a note on Antifa, because you'd be surprised how deeply entrenched they are in British society. They are not just an American phenomenon. All that and more today on Voice of the Valleys. Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys. Your host, Mr. George Cresswell, friendly neighbourhood far-right thug. Satirical, unless he's not. Anyway, got an important interview coming out hopefully later on today. If you're seeing this on Monday, the 13th of October, 2025, hopefully this will be going up before this interview goes live for members in the locals, Patreon, and the YouTube memberships tier 2 and up. I've got a very, very important interview which will be releasing at that time. The intro sequence for it will also be releasing to on all the platforms, so you can see a little bit about the conversation, what it's going to be about. But the conversation centers around a 9-year-old boy by the name of Corinne Cope, who very sadly in December of 2022 lost his life due to a mix of medical negligence, which you could say, and misdiagnosis of a perforated appendix that led to septic shock and very, very sadly cost him his life. I sat down with his mother to talk about the tragedy and also not only her experiences with the NHS, but whether she sees the NHS moving in a positive, negative direction, what work she's done, her campaigns, etc. It's a very, very important interview, and I would urge you to go and watch it. Either when it comes out this evening, right, at the time of recording, you should be seeing this episode go out before that point as well, if all goes well. However, just in case not, it will be out 6 p.m. Monday, the 13th of October for members, so you might be past that at this point by the time you're listening to this. It'll be up on all platforms then by Thursday, the 16th of October at 6 p.m. Also, Thursday, this Thursday, I'm going to be sitting down with John Carr, so make sure, if you want to get your questions in, if not, you want early access to the interview and all manner of other really, really good exclusive content, then head on over to any of the member sections and get your questions submitted. Right, getting straight into today, ladies and gentlemen, you would have seen that recently a very, very evil man got killed in prison. And that man is Ian Watkins. I suppose you could call him a man, ostensibly a man. Ian Watkins, ex-frontman of a Welsh rock band, who, you know, I basically grew up on these people and their music in large part. Lost Prophets. They hailed from a small Welsh town of Pontypridd. For those you don't know, in Welsh, typically when you see two D's put together, it makes a th sound. So it's not, you know, many people say it's Pontypridd. That's what some people do say, but it's Pontypridd is how we would say it. And two men have been appeared in court charged with the murder of, again, he's not only just a person in there for, I don't know, drug charges or whatever, ladies and gentlemen, he's one of the most prolific, you don't know who he is, which I'd be surprised if you didn't, he's one of the most prolific and depraved abusers of children in history, right? His abuses in particular are particularly depraved. Even, Lost Prophets achieved worldwide fame, back in like the early 2000s, going in, as the turn of the century. And obviously their name is renowned all across the world for different reasons. So across 2008 to 2012, there was a string of really disgusting abuses that happened with Ian, and also other women that were involving their children in it as well, willingly. There was actually two mothers that were implicated, and they tried to keep their identities anonymous at the time for the sake of the children. But a journalist, I can't remember her name. Let me see if I can find it a moment. Here we go. Where was it? I'm just trying to find the actual article itself. Yeah, Peaches Geldof Peaches Geldof was investigated for tweeting out the names of the mothers at the time. They were being kept anonymous, ostensibly for the protection, the anonymity of the children involved. But these women were bringing their children to be sexually abused by Watkins. And, you know, he seems to be quite open about his fantasies at the time of abusing children and so on. It's really, really disgusting stuff. Even allegedly, from what I've seen, you know, people making videos online and such, that even the passwords to his, I just realized my camera's a bit, there we go. It recentered myself now. A password to his computers, or his computer or some of his devices was IF Kids. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. I don't know whether that's been corroborated, but former Lost Prophets frontman who was serving a 29-year jail sentence was fatally injured at an incident in prison just after 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. So that would have been Saturday, the 11th of October, 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Rashid Gedel, or Gadel, however you say it, 25, and Samuel Dodsworth, 43, both appeared at Leeds Magistrates Court on Monday morning. Watkins, who was 48 at the time, was jailed in 2013 for a string of child sexual offences, including the attempted of a baby. So I wouldn't be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might be seeing a lot of this censored out for the sake of being able to run ads on it, basically, you know, for YouTube terms of service and stuff like that. So, again, on the other platforms, you might be able to hear more detail on this, but we're not going to be going into too much detail on that. The main thing I want to focus on, ladies and gentlemen, as we've covered before with the police, is frankly the lack of police response, but also the corruption that seemed to be at play. Appearing separately during consecutive hearings at the court, Mr. Dodsworth and Mr. Gadel spoke only to confirm the name, dates of birth. Both defendants were told that they would appear before Leeds Crown Court on Tuesday, so that'd be tomorrow, with no pleas entered. Watkins, who also faced a further 6 years on licence if he was ever released, admitted the attempted assault of a child under 13, but he pleaded not guilty. He also admitted conspiring to a child, 3 counts of assault involving children, 7 involving taking, making, or possessing indecent images of children, and 1 of possessing an extreme pornographic image involving a act on an animal. So this is one of the most depraved people in history. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most depraved people in history, who's put a massive stain on Wales and on his town, and you know, there's no words to describe how evil, obviously, this man was. Obviously, speaking in past tense now. But we can go through the one thing I wanted to do, ladies and gentlemen, was go through the string of events that happened, right? Particularly involving a woman by the name of, I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname, but Joanne Majadzelics. I'm just gonna call her Joanne from now on, or Joe. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the surname. It's Watkins' ex-girlfriend at the time, who was actually trying to bring a lot of this forward, who was actually trying to get the police to actually investigate and bring Watkins to justice. And it seems that the police really did not want anything to do with it. And this is sadly not a uncommon occurrence. We covered a couple of episodes ago. In fact, I am going to see if I can find it. 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, because this is not by any means an isolated incident. Right, there we are. Yep, I had to go back and find an old message where somebody sent me this, ladies and gentlemen, because I could not remember the perpetrators' names. But if you remember, we talked a little while ago about the case, very sinister story of Barry rapists Peter and Avril Griffiths, ladies and gentlemen. So they were dubbed the Fred and Rose West, right? They were dubbed the Fred and Rose West of Barry. That's what they were dubbed. So, according to Sky News here, one girl was repeatedly raped by Griffiths, who was aided, abetted, and encouraged by his wife. And they were actually sentenced, I believe it was in 2018, for a total of 36 years. I believe he got 20 and she got 16, I believe. I might have that slightly wrong. I'm just trying to see if it says it in here, ladies and gentlemen. But throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Peter Griffiths used his wife, who claimed to have a low IQ, as bait to help him ensnare young girls. It seemed no place was off limits. One took place in the back of a van, another on a boat where so-called sex parties were held, where police officers were said to be on board. So according to a trial, this was in a BBC News article from the 11th September 2018. All of these links will be down below in the description, by the way, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. Police present at boat sex party rape trial. Let's try this again. Police present at boat sex party rape trial hears. So, what do we have here? Peter Griffiths, 65, and Avril Griffiths, at the time 61, from Barry, faced charges of rape, indecent assault, and taking indecent photographs of a child. Jurors watched a recording of a police interview with one of the three complainants who said she was raped by Mr. Griffiths and another man who arrived at the party on a pilot boat. So, where is it? The woman who cannot be named said she knew two of the men on the boat were police officers because she said they were always bragging about it. The court heard the officers were friends of Peter Griffiths, who the complainant said was a special constable at the time. She said in an interview, the officers had said, no one is going to believe you if she told anyone about the abuse. There was another instance where Mr. Griffiths was in his uniform with other men in the uniform, but said no abuse took place then. The woman said she reported to the allegations to the police previously, and obviously nothing was done. And this is, as I said, not an isolated incident, ladies and gentlemen. So in December, this is the timeline of Grok, and there's a couple of articles which we'll go through as well. There's a Wales Online article, which I will go through here. But it started off in December 2008, ladies and gentlemen. Joanne first reports Watkins' admissions of child abuse and drugging to South Wales Police. It is dismissed as malicious without visiting an alleged victim or checking evidence, like a 2007 text from him detailing fantasies. I believe this might be the same article that I've got. Yeah. So, in this article for Wales Online, damning report finds South Wales Police missed repeated opportunities to stop paedophile rocker Ian Watkins. Paedophile rocker singer Ian Watkins could have been caught and brought to justice nearly 4 years earlier if police properly investigated reports from a series of informants, the IPCC, as the Independent Police Complaints Commission has said. In a damning report, the IPCC details how South Wales Police missed a series of opportunities to put a stop to the Lost Prophet singer's campaign of abuse against children in the years before his arrest. And it says here the ex-girlfriend Joanne and other witnesses came forward in about 2008 and tried to bring it forward all the way up until when he was arrested in 2012. They interviewed her in March 2009, but her phone with corroborating messages isn't examined. She writes letters to Watkins' mother warning of his activities. Police question her over potential harassment of his family and warn her off, accusing her of potential harassment. Again, obviously not a uncommon thing here, ladies and gentlemen. Sadly, not something which we've come to not expect. You see the campaign of terror that the police waged against the victims of the rape gangs. You think they're gonna, think they're not going to harass somebody who's trying to actually protect children in this way? It goes to show how far back the rot in our institutions goes, ladies and gentlemen. This is when I was growing up as a kid. Right, so for those who might not know, I was born in 1999. Right, I was born right at the turn of the century. So again, when this was coming forward, when this was happening, I would have been in March 2009. I would have been 9 years old. I would have been 9 years old at that time. At this time as well, Watkins' lawyers also issue her harassment orders, labeling her claims as bullshit. According to the true crime database, which Grok has linked here. Let's see if I can find it at the moment. It seems like it's more of a it looks like more of a blog article than anything else. Yeah, I can't seem to find it. I'll link it down below anyway. I'll link it down below. Or if I can maybe link the Grok output so you can go and check all the sources for yourself. It's in the Grok article itself. So maybe you'll be able to find the Grok output down below. In 2010, additional reports from two witnesses and Crime Stoppers corroborate her claims, but they are not progressed. In 2011, Joanne emails a complaint about uninvestigated reports. There was still no action. Pardon me. And this is where things really take a turn. And this is where it seems that Joanne, seemingly seeing that she's out of options and the police are not going to do anything, right? They're not going to do anything, because they were probably starstruck as well. Pontypridd, they were putting Pontypridd on the map. They were putting Wales on the map. I obviously don't want anything to happen to this. You don't want to rock the boat when big things like this are happening, right? Especially in a small town in Wales that people probably wouldn't even be able to point to Wales as a country on a map, let alone to a small town in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in Wales, right? So you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to rock the boat. Wales has very few people that have taken it to, put it on the map, so to speak. You have Jack Shaw, you have Oban Elliott, you have Mason Jones, the UFC fighters, right? Jack Marshman, all these good people, right? Sean George comes from very close to me. Champion bare knuckle fighter, right? I see this area is known for building fighters, right? Especially the Shores, right? They got quite a good name now. But again, it seems that these areas are good at building fighters, and then when it comes to musicians, they seem to go down this really, really dark path. I think it's more indicative of the culture and the music scene at the time. The front and center of the music scene at the time was depravity, and people like me that were falling into it, not realizing it, didn't know that at the time. So this is where she decides to basically play along. And this is where, very sadly, you'll see how this becomes weaponized against her by the same police that wouldn't take her complaints seriously when Watkins is eventually apprehended. She resumes contact with Watkins in 2011 to try and entrap him after police inaction. In 2012, February, she reports him again. It is again ignored. Then from March to May, she alerts South Yorkshire Police 5 times, including taking a laptop with alleged indecent images to the station 3 times. Officers view her as not to be taken seriously, don't properly examine the evidence, allocate to untrained staff, and destroy the laptop before Watkins' arrest, leaving a child at risk. They destroyed that thing with incriminating evidence on it, ladies and gentlemen, leaving a child at risk. So the police here, which you've seen, we put them in positions, we pay them the wages that we do or whatever out of taxpayer money, right, and give them this authority over our lives and our very freedom, right, choosing not to protect the most innocent and most vulnerable in our society, the young children who are being preyed on by disgusting people like Watkins. This is how far the rot goes back, ladies and gentlemen, and how deep it goes. Separately, an unnamed woman reports possible assault on an 11-month-old boy, providing computer details. There's no investigation done. April 2012, an Australian woman emails police about Watkins' abuse. It was again dismissed. And finally, in October, which I believe this is not long after then, because Watkins is finally apprehended on September 21st, 2012, right? It was not due to the reports, but during a South Wales police drug raid at his home that subsequently uncovered computers, phones, and storage devices. He had terabytes of this stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, he had terabytes of material, right? And obviously it does seem that he played a decent part in creating that himself, right? It's truly awful. He pleaded in 2013 guilty to 13 offences, as we mentioned, and he was sentenced to 29 years plus 6 on licence. But in October of 2012, Joanne reports to Bedfordshire Police about a mother later convicted as an accomplice. Like I said, there was 2, allowing Watkins to her child, providing messages, and police visit promptly but fail to seize devices or rigorously check discrepancies. So it's seeing here kind of cult that was being cultivated, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that, and see corroborated or whatever, but led people to believe, it does seem though it was this way that, he was kind of still living the high life in prison, if you will. He was getting by on donations and money being sent in from quote-unquote fans or whatever. It just goes to show how people can very easily get caught up in this evil, right, if they don't check their own principles and really ground themselves in something which they know is good, right? Two of the mothers basically sacrificed their children to this man, right? And I believe they were 21 and 18 at the time, and they were kept as Woman A and Woman B. Now, I haven't been able to... Grok has corroborated what their names are, and I believe they have since been convicted. They're serving time themselves, right? So, where is it? Yeah, so they're serving time themselves. One was serving 14 years, the other was serving 17 years. Their names were Michelle Presland and Katie Blagden. They were 2 female accomplices convicted alongside Ian Watkins for his abuse offences. They were the mothers of infant victims involved and conspired with Watkins to abuse their own children, including sending explicit images and messages and allowing him direct access to their children. So it's really, really harrowing stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to know what really is a massive kick in the teeth, though, ladies and gentlemen, after he was arrested? So count up the times that they tried to bring it forward over these 4 years, ladies and gentlemen. So, officers were found to have made errors and omissions and in some instances failed to carry out even a rudimentary investigation. You've seen all of these times that Joanne has been brought forward. Multiple police departments or multiple police institutions are involved, right? From 2007, there was a message that Watkins sent, August 12th of 2007, that Ian sent to Joanne saying, wish list, a 12-year-old, 2 underage twins. You might have, you might not have heard that, ladies and gentlemen. Might have had to mute some of the things, It's awful. It's truly, truly awful. But what happened then when she decided to basically turn double agent? She basically decided to turn double agent and, basically in some ways incriminated herself. Not that she necessarily wanted to, but incriminated herself. In the aftermath of Ian Watkins' 2012 arrest and 2013 sentencing, South Wales police charged his ex-girlfriend Joanne in March of 2014 with multiple counts of possessing and distributing indecent images of children as part of the ongoing Operation Globe investigation into his crimes. So let me just see if I can quickly pull this up. You have this. They have multiple accounts, ladies and gentlemen. She tried to bring it forward multiple times, text messages, eventually going back and essentially incriminating herself. And seemingly because the South Wales police then were exposed as not having done their diligence properly and in many ways facilitated this abuse, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, by dismissing these things. They then tried to charge her. So a report came out in the Telegraph in March of 2014. Woman charged with possessing indecent images of children in relation to Ian Watkins' lost profits case. Joanne, who's 38 at the time, was arrested as part of Operation Globe, a worldwide investigation into Watkins' paedophile activities. So a 38-year-old woman that tried to bring this forward time and time again was then charged. It's the classic thing where, again, because she did go and basically, again, incriminate herself, it's not something she necessarily wanted to do. It puts me in the mind of, I watch him on Sean Ryan all the time. Ryan Montgomery in a story where he exposed the Democrat senator, somebody who ran for, the Blues Democrat senator, ran for Congress twice. Nathan Larson, his name was, and he was eventually killed in prison as well, it seems. Was running one of the most horrific online paedophile communities. I'll link a clip down below of Ryan and Sean talking about it. You can learn how depraved these people really are and the communities that sort of they, reside in. But he was saying he was bringing information on these people out of the back of their servers and managed to find a vulnerability in their platform to get in and take all their data so that he could take it to police. But even he was worried that he would potentially end up with some, illegal information. He didn't pull any of the images and stuff like that. So again, she did incriminate herself, but not necessarily because she wanted to. And then she tried to bring this forward time and time again because the police then didn't do their jobs and they had massive egg on their face, tried to then charge her for going back in and incriminating herself and trying to. She essentially burned herself down to bring him down with her, basically. In the aftermath of what happened. It just goes to show there's no words. It's like, yeah, your work was pivotal in trying to bring this man to justice and we ignored it every single time. It's our fault and now you're going to take the fall for it. It's not going to be any of the officers that do it. Many, some of them are retired. I don't believe any of the officers involved have ever seen a day in prison. I've never seen anything to the contrary. In fact, let's ask a question. We'll do this live now. Did any of the officers involved in the negligence of the reports ever face a court or prison? Let's try that. See what it goes back with. But again, it's just like the person who tried to bring them to justice more than anyone was the one that eventually ended up facing charges of it. Charges stem from explicit images and messages she had exchanged with Watkins, which she claimed were gathered in evidence in her efforts to expose him after earlier police inaction. Again, you'd have reason to think she's credible. One of the things that was held against her as her incredibility was her past as a sex worker, right? Which, fair enough, not necessarily indicative of good or moral upstanding character, but she tried to bring this forward multiple times, and then it wasn't until, where was it in the timeline? There we go, in about 2011. So she'd been trying to bring this forward for about 2 to 3 years before this point. If she wanted to be a part of it, she would have just been a part of it, right? Pardon me. But she went to trial in Cardiff Crown Court in January 2015 and was acquitted on all counts after arguing her intent was to entrap and report him, not to commit offences. But do you want to know why this is so important, ladies and gentlemen? Not because of who necessarily Ian Watkins is, anything like that. It's because this is now becoming a massive epidemic problem in the UK. Many of us now, many people in the UK and also around the world are tapping this. We're basically the rape capital of Europe, if not in many ways the rape capital of the world, many are saying, right? And the scale of abuse and sexual exploitation in particular in particular is very gross and disturbing indeed. So a report came out recently from, I believe this was the University of Edinburgh, and a couple of other articles have come out since then as well, which we need to talk about. I'm just going to show how whatever's going on in our institutions, police, secret services, intelligence services, whatever, it's not fucking working. It's not fucking working. So everything seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. Think about it, we obviously with the more relatively technologically advanced world we live in nowadays, we think that we've made so much progress in the world. We have more slaves than ever in the world, about 40 million, I believe some people have said. This report shows a scale of child abuse and sexual exploitation. A news report has revealed fresh insights into the scale of sexual exploitation and abuse of children behind closed doors, with millions of children targeted online and offline. Which is why you're a parent, you need to take this extremely seriously. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to take your children's online, safety very seriously. A wide-ranging analysis of population-based surveys suggests 7% of children across Western Europe, which is around 5 million, according to this article, are raped or sexually assaulted before they turn 18. That's just the ones that are raped or sexually assaulted, ladies and gentlemen. Around 20% reported experiencing online solicitation or grooming before they turned 18, defined as unwanted or pressured sexual interactions online. This suggests nearly 15 million children in the region are affected. Grok has just come back with his results, by the way. We'll go through that in a moment. Figures for rape and sexual assault show that the prevalence is higher among females, about 9.7% than among males, about 3.9%, which is what you'd expect, right? Findings compiled from 48 studies from 19 European countries, included in the annual report from the Childlike Global Child Safety Institute hosted at the university. GB News also came out with an article, ladies and gentlemen. Nearly 1 in 20 British children have been sexually abused, in new research has revealed. British children are suffering a shocking pandemic of abuse, with nearly 1 in 20 assaulted and 1 in 10, so 10%, exposed to unwanted online content. The study estimates around 608,763 youngsters were assaulted before the age of 18, and over 1 million have been groomed, coerced, exploited, or exposed to unwanted sexual content online, including AI-generated child abuse. A study carried out by the University of Edinburgh-based Childlike Global Child Safety Institute, as I just mentioned, an epidemic of abuse is taking place both behind closed doors and on screens, where children are being exploited, often by people that they know. The UK figures gathered for GB News have been drawn from this new major study. Reveals there's been a 1,325%, so 1,325% surge in AI-generated child sex abuse material since 2023. Images now include deep fakes of children's faces placed onto naked bodies or blended synthetic real abuse videos. So again, sort of like a mix between, real videos of abuse and then using the AI to sort of add components to it, I guess. There's a dash between synthetic and real in this article. Childlike warns many abusers are family members or trusted adults who coerce children into creating content or sharing explicit photos as part of grooming rituals. This is what happens when you grow up in a world without principle. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you grow up in a world without principle. Just to touch back on what happened before, ladies and gentlemen, to corroborate what I said, no, none of the officers involved in the negligence face criminal court proceedings or imprisonment. Across the involved forces, primarily South Wales Police, South Yorkshire and Bedfordshire, the IPCC investigations led to internal disciplinary actions for several officers, but these were limited to misconduct or gross misconduct hearings with outcomes, such as a detective sergeant was cleared after a gross misconduct hearing with no further action against 2 detective constables. That was South Wales Police. In South Yorkshire, 3 retired officers were found to have a case for gross misconduct but faced no action due to retirement. 1 serving officer faced a misconduct hearing for inappropriate remarks remarks to a complainant. Overall, earlier IPCC notices were served on 8 officers across the forces, but no criminal charges resulted from the failings identified. Yeah, the one person who put themselves in a really bad position to try and bring this person to justice, yeah, she was the one that they tried to charge afterwards. No good deed. I don't want to call it a good deed, actually. You know the sentiment I'm going for here, ladies and gentlemen, where you see here people who blow the whistle on corruption, and then they are the ones that get it in the neck. I've spoken to Victoria, I've spoken to Justine, I've spoken to all of these other people. No good deed goes unpunished is a common thing we see nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. No good deed goes unpunished. Professor Elena Martellozzo, director of Child Rights European Hub, said abusers access networks of other online abusers by providing new sex abuse images. Actually, one of the things that Ryan Montgomery touched on in that interview with Sean Ryan is that he could have had access to, when he was doing his impersonation stuff, he could have had access to more information or more material if he'd submitted material himself. As a way they operate in order to, show that you're not an either undercover cop or anything like this or whatever, that you have to provide material in order to then access like this wider, community of material. It's truly disgusting, these circles that these people run in, ladies and gentlemen. It's quickly showing our police forces, our, information services, our intelligence services, they're still going on. It's reaching epidemic proportions, according to the rape crisis of England and Wales, ladies and gentlemen, rapecrisis.org.uk. Fewer than 3 in 100 rapes are recorded by police in 2024, resulted in somebody being charged that same year, let alone convicted. According to them, some of their stats here are very, very alarming. You have 1 in 2 rapes against women are carried out by their partner or ex-partner. 6 in 7 rapes against women carried out by somebody that they know. 1 in 4 women, according to these people, have been raped or sexually assaulted since the age of 16. 1 in 6 children have allegedly been sexually abused. 1 in 18 men have been raped or sexually assaulted since the age of 18. There's no words to describe the depravity, is there, Liz? There's no words to describe this depravity, and that's why you make no peace with evil. And if they say, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about this? Why are these failings so? How have we progressed so much? Seemingly, yeah, we have these epidemic levels of some of the worst crimes that we've ever seen. Maybe we've gotten some things wrong, in modernity, so to speak. Maybe we've gotten some things wrong that, our, previous generations at least got somewhat better than we do. And it just goes to show that, casting off the principles that governed our societies in large part for, hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? Maybe not such a good idea. But question is, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who, like me, it's almost like when if because their songs are still up on Spotify and stuff like that, and sometimes gone back to re-listen to some bits of it in some instances, right? Obviously, like many people, I distanced myself from that music when the story broke, right, and when he was convicted, as many people did. And as a young fan at the time, it absolutely broke my heart, because I did actually, like a lot of their music growing up, and I wasn't alone in that. They were a phenomenon. They were an absolute phenomenon. And I'm not saying that as obviously, an endorsement and a thing of reverence now, ladies and gentlemen. Just saying the music took over the world. It makes you wonder. Some people are now saying, now that he's dead, right, that it's good that we can only go back and listen to the music again, knowing that he's not going to get paid royalties, because apparently you do all this stuff, you still get paid royalties if people play the music. You're in prison, he's getting paid royalties when people played his music. The music that he was a part of. And now we can go back and play it, we can listen to it again, because at least now the royalties are going to go to his bandmates, only going to go to his bandmates. There's nothing going to go to him, and it's going to go to their families. Well, somebody posted an interesting video from 2010 ladies and gentlemen. 2010. It's an old MySpace interview that Ian did with his bandmates back in, as I said, back in 2010. And I want you to watch this, ladies and gentlemen. The person who posted this has, you know, the question is, was it an open secret at the time? Did his bandmates know about it? That's what I want you to think about, ladies and gentlemen, now. So, you got several of the bandmates here, but the two in question whom you really need to focus on are Ian Watkins, who is the one with the wild hair on the most right-hand side of this video, and Stuart Richardson, who is the one sat in the middle. So there's going to be four of them sat on a sofa, ladies and gentlemen, and Ian Watkins is in the right-hand side of the frame. You'll see now, as Richardson is the one that's talking. He's in the middle next to the guy with the bleach blonde hair, right? And the interaction goes like this. Apparently they got a question come in from somebody with the tagline or name of Baby Girl, and Stuart Richardson reads it out. It says, Baby Girl asks, what's your guilty pleasure? Watkins laughs and says, just answered it. Obviously, this is a 40-second extract, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what was said before this. Richardson then asks, Ian, you've been with a couple of famous ladies. Who would you rather spend one last night with? Fern, as in Fern Cotton, or Alexa, as in Alexa Chung, or all the others? That's what they forgot to say there. There's loads you don't even know. And then Watkins reports, Stu does. And it's a little bit of a joke. And then Richardson goes, I do. I've seen the videos. And then there's this awkward laugh that takes place and sort of like a, look down to the side as if like, oh shit, should I have said that? And then Watkins remarks, oh, we're going to the dark place. And then Richardson tries to move on, goes, okay, next question. Makes you wonder, did they know about it at the time? So I'm going to bring this up on screen for you at the moment. This video perfectly encapsulates the absolute train wreck that was 2010's fashion and style as well. The absolute lack of principle on display. But have a listen to this now, ladies and gentlemen, and just let me know what you think. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I want to make that perfectly clear, obviously. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But it does make you wonder, what videos are they referring to? Now, obviously, I don't know. It could, for example, celebrities have been known to be massive degenerates in this way, right? As you know, many other people have done it also. People make sex tapes with each other, all of these different things, right? You have the famous Kim K sex tape and all of these other things. So it could have been referring to these, right? It could have been referring to these. And I can attest, right, that people often do share these things in their social circles, right? But have a listen to this. Have a watch this. And just let me know what you think. Video coming on screen now. And I can only apologise for you listeners outside of Wales on this one, or listeners outside of the UK. The Welsh accent in this one is it's an acquired taste. Let's just say that.
Baby girl asks, what's your guilty pleasure?
Right, said Fred.
Just answered it.
Right, said Fred.
No, if you were watching all that, did you say what? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, that's good. I was talking.
Oh, that's all right.
I do have a guilty pleasure.
The question is, Ian, you've been out with a couple of famous ladies. Who would you rather spend one last night with? Fern or Alexa or all the others? That's what I forget to say there. All the others. There's loads. You don't even know. Don't even know.
Yeah, Stu does.
I do. I've seen all the videos.
We're going to the dark place.
Okay. Next question. Hello.
So you saw there, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing is he was very ecstatic when he said it. And the thing is, where he said there, ladies and gentlemen, obviously there's a cut in the middle of it, so I don't know what was exactly cut out. But, it says, there's all the videos you don't even know. There's all the videos you don't even know. Right? So again, is that referring to the fact that seemingly, at least Richardson in this instance, would have known about it and didn't say anything, didn't bring it forward? Who knows? Obviously, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. And it could be referring to someone else. It could just be referring to, as I said, people that Ian was with at the time and had been with at the time. right? I think by some accounts he was, not exactly very conservative in his, relationship habits, should we say. And, it could just be referring to pornographic material that he'd made with women, with actual women, people that he'd been with at the time, and sharing that in social circles, right? I don't know. But there's obviously now a possibility that could his bandmates have known about it? And I would just, until we can find out more on this, at the very least, this clip now is, I believe, hit about 2 million views on X. I would hold off on just, if anybody has plans of going back and making Lost Prophets a regular thing that they're going to listen to, in order to send royalties to the rest of the bandmates or whatever. I'd maybe just hold off on that. I don't know if they're going to get an actual investigation or whatever. I don't know if there's been any evidence that suggests that there was a need for investigation, but it's interesting. It's interesting that this has resurfaced, and things that, you kind of miss at the time. But this would have been right around the time. This would have been right at the height. Of Watkins' string of abuses, starting back in 2007. This interview was in 2010. And then not long after, September of 2012, he was apprehended and taken into prison. So, makes you think, again, did they know about it? And if they did, obviously it speaks to their character as well. That's why maybe I'd hold off on planning to send any royalties to them anytime soon. Now, on to other topics now, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a long topic to go through, but there's just so much to go through, ladies and gentlemen, honestly. So check out the sources and the links and everything down below. You might be able to even find the Grok output down below, where you can go and find all the articles that Grok lists in there, because there's about 20 or so different articles that Grok has listed in there, right? So go and check and read them for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. But this is where we need to start holding our police accountable. And this way, you wonder why so many people don't trust the police? Because they've seen how in many instances how in bed they are, in some instances quite literally, with these very, very evil people that do evil things to children. It's awful, ladies and gentlemen. Now, something I touched on before, ladies and gentlemen, and many people now, even in America, they're calling it white flight. I don't know if you hear about this, ladies and gentlemen. I touched on it before. When we talk about that Wales is a dying society, and that in the Swansea government's own data, the net population for Wales in terms of Welsh people is actually decreasing quite drastically. From 2023, it was either 2023 to 2024 or 2024 to 2025, there was 8,100 more deaths than births. So obviously that's not a good trajectory. That's not a good trajectory by any means. But when you do everything to eliminate the family, eliminate the importance of the family, to not revere having children, having a good family structure, the nuclear family, etc., and you marry the state instead, who systematically wants to get rid of you because they want to import a foreign voting bloc to get rid of your democratic rights and all the rest of it, then it's quite easy to see how that would happen, and our lack of principles has directly led to that. But what you're noticing now, ladies and gentlemen, where they bring in more and more of these people in, especially the boat people, the very, very dangerous people. This now noticing of this phenomenon known as white flight is now taking place, where, as we saw, there was quite a bit of internal migration into areas of Wales, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to know why that is? And I spoke about this before. As I said, I mentioned it. I talked to people about it who've moved from these areas. People move from the areas of the big cities and these areas where they're being flooded with these migrants, right, deliberately in an act of aggression, in an act of a weapon of mass ethnic replacement is what I call it, right? And now the native Britons are moving away. They're moving away. With good reason. With good reason, because they see Epping, they see London, they see Rochdale, they see Telford, they see all of these other places where the horrific atrocities are taking place, and they know that the government, the police, and everybody else is not going to have their back. So where do they go? They flee to areas like mine. They flee to areas where they see people that look like them and act like them and speak like them. And many uses have the same cultural customs and norms, right? Because they know they're going to be safe. That's why. They know they're going to be safe. So a caller calling at Talk TV has noted now that native Britons are moving away from areas that have been flooded with migrants because nobody wants to live there. Many is this because they're being made deliberately unsafe, and the tax burden is being shifted onto them to take care of these people, and they never asked for it. Have a listen, ladies and gentlemen. And this is not some blood and soil, ethno-nationalist saying this either, right? Just have a listen.
And you've seen it change over the years?
I've seen everything change, especially the East London where I come from.
Well, that's right. East London has basically, you could argue it's an example of our failed multicultural experiment.
Yeah, and this is going to spread. The more people, what used to happen in the old days was when, I don't care what people call me for saying this, but when immigrants moved into the local area, it lowered the tone of the neighbourhood, so they moved out, all right? And when they moved out, they thought, all right, this is a nice little place, we'll stay here. Now, that invasion sort of thing is coming to their local area as well. There's nowhere else for them to move, so they have to stand up and make their voices heard.
Richard, is there a difference between the people that come to this country, work hard, learn the language, follow the customs and traditions?
I have no problem with that. If you're going to come here, I've been abroad, I've worked abroad and things like that. Yeah. I've learned the local language when I've gone abroad. You know, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, not a blood and soil ethno-nationalist or anything like that, ladies and gentlemen. He's talking now about, you know, how he's perfectly happy, for example, in his own personal capacity for people, you know, they want to come here, they want to integrate, whether you believe in integration, anything like that, right? I know a lot of people have even said, you know, integration is a complete myth to begin with, you know. But, you know, everybody's entitled to their own view, and they can make it based on whatever evidence and logic, you know, that they have, right? And people can clash with these ideas, right? You can have this clash of ideas and see whose ideas went out, of course. But you're seeing there, even just regular people, they're noticing, right? And they're understanding that, no, I don't want to just have all of a sudden my community usurped with a bunch of people I know nothing about, often don't speak the language. They're not working, and I'm now having to pay for them, which I never asked for. I've already got my own family to take care of, right? I'm poor enough as it is in many ways, right? And I'm rapidly being made more and more and more poor, which, by the way, your government's doing that by design, ladies and gentlemen, because they need that. As we'll talk about this important clip from Stephen Crowder, which perfectly explains this, in my opinion, right? That'll be coming up at the end of the show that really encapsulates this. Stay tuned. How the government needs you to stay poor so you'll continue to vote for them. They need you to stay poor so that they can continue to be the saviour, and that's why you'll continue to vote for them. But now, you're seeing here by design, when this is happening by design, and these people will be called racist and all manner of other things, but no, they want to be around predominantly their own people, because they understand their own people. They don't know anything about these people that have been coming in en masse, and in many instances now you're seeing when they set up in large enough numbers, when they get to large enough numbers, they set up their own social enclaves, they set up their own environments, they set up their own cultures. It's like you have these little pockets of tribes, little pockets of foreign, you know, outposts, if you will, in our land, which we never asked for. Nobody ever asked for. Even, I don't think, even if you say to even people who are still like, you know, pro-immigration, or at least like pro-legal immigration or whatever, as for the most part, would you want your country to have outposts of it that all of a sudden you're walking through Karachi, Pakistan, right? Most people would say no. Most people would say no, and odds are the people who wouldn't say no would be the ones which you wouldn't want here in the first place. But they're getting sick and tired of it because they see things like this, ladies and gentlemen. They see that the foreigners come here, right? The foreigners come here to a land that's not their home, right? They're guests here, right? Many instances uninvited. The government had no right to invite a lot of them, right? Many instances, you could say, they had no right to invite any of them. But I see, and when they get here in large enough numbers and they're able to use our system to overthrow our system and remove the rights of our people, then you see how angry and how people want to flee or fight. And that's why you see unrest and mass exodus from these areas. A Labour MP, ladies and gentlemen, a foreign Labour MP, whom, make no mistake, your forefathers did not go and die on the beaches of fucking Normandy so that a foreigner could come here to their homeland and lecture people about flying their own fucking flag for whatever reason they wanted, ladies and gentlemen. But that's what's happening here. I'm just going to see if I can find this guy's name. A moment. But it's a foreigner, and he's called for national flags to be taken down across his county. Tells you a lot about Plaid Cymru, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of Plaid Cymru councils have been taking down Welsh and Union flags. That tells you a lot, doesn't it? That tells you a lot about the so-called Party of Wales. He's asked local council to enforce the removal of all national flags. And they say we wonder why we say they hate Britain. It's Labour MP Jeevan Sandher, and it's in Loughborough, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you wonder why so many of our veterans, in their reports afterwards, when they were speaking to journalists after the war and in their old age in the 21st century, said that in many instances we think that we fought for the wrong fucking side, right? This, ladies and gentlemen, is largely why.
Down the lamppost flags. I'm here on Epinal Way. There are flags hanging from almost every single lamppost. Now look, I love our flag. My wife wore that flag when she served in the British Army. I see flags flying proudly from flagpoles from public buildings. I see it when the England football team plays. And I don't think about those flags very much, actually. They're just there. It's quite nice. And yet here I am.
He loves the flag, but he doesn't think about it much.
They're getting a bit tatty. The cable ties are coming loose. They could blow off in the wind. And then I see flags painted on roundabouts. And that is just a bit weird. And you know, because you've seen it online and I see it in my inbox, that this does make people feel uneasy. And they ask what...
That's why they don't like it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they don't like it.
Your pride. I'm proud of my country.
They don't like it because they can see it for what it is. People are sick and tired of being colonized. And it tells you a lot when now that flag, in many instances, where people are putting it up. And the one instance, he does have a point. He does have a point, because if that flag in some way does fly off and goes onto the windscreen of a car, it could obviously cause something seriously bad. So I will concede that. But talking about painting on roundabouts, there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, you could just say it's defacement of public property. But many says, would you actually, argue with that? You're just putting a red cross on an already white roundabout, for example, or decorating a roundabout with the Welsh flag, for example. We already decorate several road signs with the Welsh flag. They don't like it because it's actually a symbol of rebellion. They don't like it because it's actually a symbol of rebellion. That's why. That's why. And they don't like because it's a part of a concerted campaign all across the country called Raise the Colours. Raise the Colours in opposition to foreigners ruling over us, right? Maybe this is more and more happening in Britain, but we do have this problem in Wales as well. I talked about a councillor by the name of Bablin in Cardiff, outright lying about asylum seekers committing crimes on the floor of Cardiff Council. Right, so make no mistake, it happens, and it happens every single day, and we're sick and tired of being dictated to by foreigners when we never asked for it, or at least that's what many people are feeling. And that's why you're seeing these flags going up all around the place, because they've seen that the council will go up and tear them down. They've seen that the councils will fly in England, in Wales, in Scotland, in all the countries. They'll fly foreign flags above public government buildings, right, which is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Even on our education institutions, for example, I talked about before, Welsh educational institutions, they'll happily, I see I'm not sure if it's up at the moment, I see a Ukrainian flag pretty much every day. I see a Ukrainian flag, and especially around, obviously, June and July, they'll happily hoist the pride flag. Do they ever have, the Union flag or the Welsh flag up all year round? No. No. And there's a deliberate reason why. And there's a deliberate reason why. And that's why they don't like it. Because people are awake now. People are waking up. And they're seeing that the target is on their back. And that you cannot expect, this is why I don't like, reform, I don't like many of these other alternatives. Because who's the only people that are really going to get us out of this mess? It's going to be our own people. It has to be our own people. It has to be our own people. It has to be one of our own. That's why you see so many rallying behind Rupert Lowe at the moment, because he's unapologetic about it. Even to the extent that Reform Branch in East Surrey recently, I don't know whether you saw it, ladies and gentlemen, they closed down their X account because they put up a photoshopped image of Rupert Lowe holding out a Gaza flag out of his window, a Palestinian flag out of his window, when he was holding an English flag, and they got absolutely railroaded for it. Within minutes, the entire account was shut down. That was funny. But that's why they rally behind him so much. And as I said, it's part of a concerted effort, ladies and gentlemen, because within the civil service, for example, within all the government offices, they've now released a quote-unquote inclusive language guide. And a lot of people are quite tired of this inclusive fucking nonsense, because they've seen how much nonsense and how much anti-British sentiment and how much targeting is put towards its people has been smuggled in under this guise of inclusivity, right? It's meant to include people that really could say never ever should have been here, had their own exclusive lands to go to, or it's almost exclusively them. And if you try to take inclusivity to many of these other areas around the world, they throw it back in your face and they laugh, or they potentially even meet you with Hill's bullets. Because they want no part of it. So why do we have to have any part of it? Ladies and gentlemen, well, we don't. And the government could reverse it tomorrow if they wanted to, but they don't want to, because they want the decline. Non-white is an offensive term, civil servants told. The Northern Ireland Civil Service, is from an article from the Telegraph, has shared an inclusive language guide to avoid negative stereotypes in the workplace. No surprise, ladies and gentlemen, this is your top inclusive language guide supporter. I'm going to bring it up on screen for you now. You don't get any points in guessing who you're about to see. Maybe not the name, but here you go. Option A, straight white man. Option B, gay white man. Option B, BAME, man or woman. Option D, white liberal female. Option E, other non-binary, he, hims, they, thems, etc. Drumroll, please. It's a white liberal female. Who saw that coming? Anyway, so I don't know if I know how to pronounce this person's name. This is, is it Kiva? Kiva Archibald? I think that's how you say it. Is an advocate of inclusive language practices to ensure differences are recognised. The phrase non-white is offensive. It should be avoided, civil servants have been told. Well, hope that when Hamza Yusuf uses the, lambast the Scottish people for being white, that we also say that that's, offensive and should be avoided. Northern Ireland Civil Service has released an inclusive language guide which advises public sector workers to use from a minority ethnic background as an alternative to reinforcing negative stereotypes. Now think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Stereotypes exist for a reason. What's the reason that stereotypes exist for? Usually because they poke fun at, or they poke at something which you're not supposed to notice, ladies and gentlemen. Right? I saw a post on X recently which perfectly encapsulated this. Like, why do people fear people saying Allahu Akbar so much? And it's like, because we're waiting for the explosion or for the hail of gunfire that comes afterwards, right? Those stereotypes exist for a reason, because they come from a pattern. And this is where you're seeing here the government, instead of actually dealing with the pattern or dealing with the problem, they're trying to stop people from talking about the problem. As always, that's what the solution is focused on. Not like the Soviet Union. Not that, an RBMK reactor has exploded, right? And is now, spewing radiation like an atomic kettle, right? No, how does an RBMK reactor explode? And then trying to obfuscate, cover up. And then obviously the person then, Valery Legasov, I'm referring to the drama series here from HBO, and I know it's dramatized. But again, what happens to Valery Legasov in the show, for example, the only way then he's able to get the truth out is by recording the tapes and committing suicide, showing that he was willing to die for this. And sadly, we should not need people to die for the truth. We should not need people to die for the truth, but sadly, that's where we're at in this now, because otherwise, if people wouldn't need to die for the truth if we didn't have inclusive language guides and all of this stuff, right? If we didn't have these Soviet, Soviet-style practices, if you will, right? The term non-white is the latest to be condemned for creating misconceptions that all minority ethnic communities are the same. The acronym BAME, Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic, was previously widely accepted for use. However, they're now even modifying their own, for lack of a better term, pussyfooting modifications, right? That's what they're like. That's what they're talking about now. Probably get cancelled for that, because as we saw on BBC Newsnight in Northern Ireland recently, somebody said, oh yeah, we need to stop pansying around the issue of immigration, and then they tried to be like, oh, hang on, you're making fun of homosexuals there, because pansying around is a slur term for homosexuals. He's like, no, that's obviously not what I'm referring to. It's a turn of phrase to say, look, we need to stop being so frigging, weak around this issue and just tackle it head on. That's obviously what he's using it for. But then, again, anything that the mainstream media can do to sort of lump you in as all of these other names like homophobe and all of these other things they'll try and do, even if it has nothing to do with the conversation. The guide now suggests that BAME should be avoided because it marks disparities between different minority ethnic groups. Right, there was the differences that made people unique and good and everything, right? But now you're trying to bring them all together. It seems weird. It is one of the dozens of suggestions issued by the taxpayer-funded, you're paying for this, ladies and gentlemen, designed to avoid incorrect assumptions or stereotypes, helping foster a culture of respect and belonging in the workplace. So just bring this up on screen so you can see it as well, ladies and gentlemen. The term illegal immigrants is one term being discouraged in the guide. However, in its justification, it suggests because you should not use migrant to refer to all minority ethnic people, as some will have been born here. Still makes them fucking migrants, right? Even though they're born here. That's why the anchor baby thing is such a problem, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? That's why the anchor baby thing is such a problem. You come here, you have a baby here, and then they get birthright citizenship, and you have a way back into this country for life, even though you can go back around the world and do whatever you want and have all the other foreign ties that you want, right? That's why many people are now saying that question about birthright citizenship is coming up in the US, for example. But see, they tried to use the term irregular, for example. Critics of the guide have called it magical thinking and a waste of time and resources. Absolutely true, ladies and gentlemen. 24,500 members of staff who will have access to the guide. That's a lot of indoctrination right there. 26 pages of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Avoids the phrase English native. Suggest speaks English as a first language. That is genocidal language, ladies and gentlemen. That is genocidal language. You're denying right there an entire native heritage. That's what you are doing with this quote-unquote inclusive language guide. You see there, it's actually very exclusive. It's excluding the English from their own heritage, from their own ancestral heritage, going back thousands and thousands of years, to bend over backwards for people that have just come off on a fucking boat yesterday, or that maybe have one generation here, maybe been here for fucking, 10 years, right? Come here, had a baby, and other kid's like 10 years old. It's a fucking joke. It's not a very funny one, but it's a fucking joke. Other phrases in the guide advise against the use of gender, under the guise of being gender inclusive, include chairman, man-made, and policeman. This is how society gets destroyed. This is how society gets destroyed. And it's kind of funny. Again, you're seeing more and more of these policies, and a lot of the areas are getting worse and worse and worse. We have more inclusivity than ever. We have more diversity than ever. Oh, we're so multicultural and diverse. And people are running away. I wonder why that is. But that's genocidal language right there. Avoid the phrase English native. That's genocidal language right there. And we should be responding to it as such. Or we should at least be thinking about it as such. Anyway. And everything is turned against you if you're a native person, ladies and gentlemen, even though you may have fought and died for this country. The guy who we talked about just now, Jundeep or whatever the friggin' hell his name was, right, mentioned that his wife fought for the British Army or whatever, and they're extremely proud of the flag. Well, what about the veteran that killed himself after being refused a house by the council who said he wasn't a priority? One of our own, Rob Homans. By the time he was 19, he was off for his first tour of Afghanistan. At 21, he went for his second, fighting for his country. But despite embarking on a extreme career, his mother, Dawn Turner, believes what he endured in the army wrecked his mind. When he came back, he was broken. In August, the former Royal Horse Artillery bombardier was found dead at the age of 35. He had taken his own life. Rob had been struggling in the years after he left the army. He was desperate to get back on his feet, and he had asked the council to help him find a house. That's why you can't be reliant on the government. Ladies and gentlemen, they'll bend over backwards for foreigners that have no place being here, they've done nothing to be here, but then you go and fight for your country. Your family has generations, potentially going back hundreds, if not thousands of years, and the council turns its back on you. That's why you can't be reliant on the government, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we need to start breaking off from the government, right? We need to start finding ways to reduce government, right? Veterans like Rob should have priority for social housing because of the Armed Forces Covenant, but Worcester City said he's not a priority, his mother claimed, and only offered him a HMO far from his friends and family. Yet they bend over backwards to put these foreigners up in hundreds of thousands, even potentially £1 million houses, and they're still not fucking happy. In August, Rob attended his brother's wedding. He danced, smiled, and saw his friends. Over the next week, he phoned his old army buddies and mates, catching up with everyone. He had tried to take his own life multiple times over the years, but had always been saved. Tragically, this August, he succeeded. It was 256, a mental health campaigner, broke down in tears. She told us, "It doesn't seem real. I hope he knew how much we loved him. I feel like I've failed him." And that's what you're seeing there, the personal accountability, the personal feeling of failure for governmental failure, and it's all by design, ladies and gentlemen. They couldn't give a shit that Rob killed himself, right? Government couldn't give a shit that Rob killed himself. He's wrong colour. He's from the wrong place. It's likely politically disadvantageous. He probably would have voted the wrong way. Right, that's the way that they see it. Entire world, for whatever reason at the moment, hates the white man more than any other kind of person, it seems. That's why we got to look out for ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, because nobody else is going to, not even your own government, is going to look out for you. That's why I appreciate you guys who tune into the show and help out with your comments and shares and stuff like that. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Guys have played a pivotal role in even just getting this channel, for example, on YouTube monetized, so that at the very least we can start building something. It hopes very, very slow. Yet, even with the regular uploads and stuff like that, my reach is still obviously very, very small. Yet to even break $10 as of yet, but it's something. It's not much, but it's honest work. It's not much, but it's honest work. I want to hold my government accountable. If he were here, I would tell him I will fight until my dying breath. The gloves are off. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to get justice of him and prevent this from happening again. They need to pay for what they've done. They absolutely do, ladies and gentlemen. They absolutely do. And you're seeing this as well, ladies and gentlemen, that this is frankly absolutely disgusting. The phrase born and bred has now apparently been criminalised. The Reform councillor in the Falkirk area is facing a 22-page complaint for saying that she was born and bred in her local area. And we're going to see an awful bit of hypocrisy, what appears to be in this instance from the Scottish government in a moment. She said, "You can't ban things that are true from being said." Apparently you can. And this is from GB News, ladies and gentlemen. So, Reform councillor from Falkirk said that she was born and bred in Falkirk, with multiple different examples in the comments as well. Angela Rayner, I'm talking about Kim Leadbeater in 2021. Kim Leadbeater is Batley born and bred and will stand up for local people and be a powerful voice for her community. Adnan Hussein, I'm British, born and bred, posted not even a month ago. Well, just over a month ago, 14th of September this year, Adnan Hussein, a literal foreigner, posted, "I'm British, born and bred," obviously received no punishment whatsoever. Nicola Sturgeon, Ayrshire, born and bred. Lee Anderson, first Ashfield MP to be born and bred here. I wouldn't be surprised if they come for Lee Anderson next. Here's that extract from GB News, ladies and gentlemen. Coming on screen for you now.
Is a true unrest, and it's scary. It's scary as a local resident, somebody who's born and bred here. I shouldn't have said that.
Well,
Yeah.
do you see why this is people
Yeah.
sometimes think that
Yeah,
Reform are very much
yeah.
against having people
That just
here?
came out. It just came out. Just
That's unfortunate for you, I guess, but ultimately, do you see why people...
The most embarrassing thing, first off, and we'll pause that a minute. Most embarrassing thing, first off, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that she felt as though she had to be embarrassed by saying it. It's true. It's just absolutely fucking true. Right? She's a Scottish woman. She's born and bred there. And then instantly she thinks that, I shouldn't have said that. Why? Because so scared of offending people? That's a part of the problem. That's a part of the problem, ladies and gentlemen.
I was born in racist. I was born in the Angel Islington. In the Angel, yeah, very nice. So when I speak to a real man, it makes me sort of, I know what you mean. Yeah, Angel, yeah, lovely stuff.
That's fancy Islington, though. That's Keir Starmer neck of the woods, isn't it?
Yeah, back in the olden
days. Champagne socialist.
Well, look, I mean, Steve, for me, we'll get into the fact that this complaint process has gone through, but she wasn't helping herself with this reaction that she had when she was like, oh no, I've said born and bred. It's the worst thing that anybody could say. I've never heard anybody claim that to be in any way connected to racism.
No, style it out. Even if you accidentally say something that's very wrong, style it out.
I do that all the time.
Oh, I've noticed. I think you're excellent at it. It's brilliant. The complaint has been about it not being inclusive language, but she starts the sentence with the I. The subject of the sentence is her, because she says I, and I presume it's true that she was born and bred there. I've not checked, but you can't ban things that are true from being said. If she'd have said, you're not a local resident if you were not born and bred around here, not inclusive. But I was born and bred around here, it's just a fact, isn't it? Could you just calm down? I was born and bred somewhere. Does that mean I'm a problem?
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, in terms of stuff.
So see why people are getting sick and tired of this whole inclusivity stuff now? So people see how cucked and how weak it makes people sound. But yet, as I mentioned, in the comments of this, ladies and gentlemen, which you'll find linked down below, and you can go into the comments, somebody posted the screenshots where, again, a couple of years ago, Angela Rayner said Kim Leadbeater's born and bred in Batley. Adnan Hussein saying he's British born and bred, right? Which is obviously just a complete lie anyway. They'll allow, obviously, all other manner of uninclusive speech, right? They'll allow people to call on the streets for the death of Jews, right? All of these other things. So the biggest thing is it's completely inconsistent, and people can see that it's being applied only one way. That's the biggest thing. People can see it's being applied only one way, or in only a select few ways. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. They have no problem, however, with Hamza Yusuf admits he's the Pakistani equivalent of a blood and soil nationalist. Son of the soil in Pakistan, he says. They have no problem with this. This is apparently perfectly inclusive, but if you say you're born and bred in this country because you're a native of this country, not inclusive. See the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Don't notice, however, because you might be arrested.
I'm very proud of being the first Scottish Pakistani to become First Minister of Scotland. So I'm a son of the soil there in Pakistan.
Together for nearly about an hour. So what are the main topics in that area that you discussed?
So increasing trade and investment and cooperation between Pakistan and Scotland. What more we can do on education. We've actually had a 155% increase in Pakistani students coming to Scotland. So we want to see if we can increase that further.
God help Scotland. God help Scotland. But let me play it one more time for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me play it one more time. Just have a listen.
I'm very proud of being the first Scottish Pakistani to become First Minister of Scotland. So I'm a son of the soil there in Pakistan.
I'm a son of the soil there in Pakistan. That's apparently perfectly inclusive. And you have somebody like that that's running Scotland. Yeah, somebody like that that's running Scotland. Just goes to show, when it's advantageous, and Narinder Kaur exemplifies this perfectly, right? When it's advantageous for them to do so, like a fucking skin suit, right? They'll take everything about you and say that we are just the same as you, right? When it's politically advantageous to do so. The minute you get them speaking about anything that really matters to them, right? Or when it's not politically advantageous to do so, when it's the Raise the Colours campaign or whatever, which in theory, if they're heart and soil British, they would be supporting, right? They then say, I'm not British, I'm Pakistani, or whatever. Just to show, they think that your entire ethnic history and your entire ethnicity, everything down to your blood and who you are at the most basic level of your DNA, is something for them to wear like a fucking suit. That's how a lot of these people think. And that's just a sad reality, especially the ones that have achieved political power and are now using it for their own ends. You saw him there. God help fucking Scotland when they said that we've seen 155% increase in Pakistanis to Scotland. God fucking help them. God fucking help them. Funnily enough then, our communities don't tend to get any better, ladies and gentlemen. Our communities stand nothing by being made to look more like fucking Karachi. I'd rather Cardiff look more like Cardiff and less like Kabul, or less like Mosul. I'd rather Merthyr continue to look like Merthyr, despite the shithole that it really is. I'd rather it look like Merthyr than Mosul, right? With the fucking slave markets and all the rest of it. I'd rather it still look like fucking Merthyr. Merthyr's a town in Wales, by the way, if you didn't know that. Anyway, on to the last couple of things now, ladies and gentlemen. So you've seen there, they just want to use your entire ethnicity and everything that your forefathers and mothers built, right? They want to not only take it over, but they want to say we're parading around and we're putting on this cape of we're just like you whenever it suits us. That's what they want to do. Because people will fall for it. Because people are good-natured people. People in this country are good-natured people, and they actually want to believe it. They actually want to believe that these people, like Hamza Yusuf, like Narinder, like all these others, and Asawa, when he was questioned about the grooming gangs, he deflected it, called it far-right lies. They want to actually believe. A lot of people in this country still want to actually believe in immigration and believe in integration and all of these things. They still want to believe it. A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people still want to believe it. They have to understand. You might want to believe it, but you don't just have to understand how you think. You have to understand how these people think if you want to really get the full picture. And they say it open and honestly a lot of the time. Yes, they lie other times. Government specializes in lying. But a lot of times, they're quite open about it. They're quite open about it. One thing which people weren't open about, however, which shows you exactly where the government want to protect, right? Again, going back to Ian Watkins, for example, although Ian Watkins was born and bred in Wales, right? Sun recently won a legal battle to reveal that a child rapist was an asylum seeker. They had to go through a legal battle. A newspaper, this is either in the UK or in the US, I'm not sure where it is, Ben Leo, but he has the US Capitol building in the background, so I'm not exactly sure if this is American or if this is UK. We'll find out in a moment. The Sun had to go a legal battle to reveal that a child rapist, Amin Abedi Mohammed, tells you a lot, right, was an asylum seeker. His lawyers tried to block reporting on his immigration status, but a court ruled in favour of open justice. So this appears to be in America, but again, this is in the woke judicial system and all these things they're trying to protect, quote unquote, asylum seekers and the military age males and whatever is not unique to America. It's happening in all of our countries. Bastions of freedom in Europe tend to be Poland and Hungary, as we know. Here's Ben Leo corresponding, I believe, from America with the story.
The Sun, this is breaking news tonight. The Sun newspaper has won a massive legal battle to reveal that a child rapist was an asylum seeker. I'll just repeat that. The Sun's won a legal battle to reveal that a child rapist in Britain was an asylum seeker. His name was Amin Abedi Mofrad. He's 35. He was convicted of attacking a 15-year-old girl after throwing his coat over her head. His legal team and prosecutors wanted to keep his asylum status secret during the trial, blocking the Sun from reporting on it. They claimed it could sway the jury's verdict if they read about it and even cause protests outside the court. But the Sun's lawyers, and I know the Sun's lawyers very well because I've worked with them many times when I was there for 7 years. They're a good bunch. They argued a ban could be seen as an example of two-tier justice, and there was no evidence the jury would be distracted in any way by the defendant's immigration status. Very quick word, 10 seconds. Good that we should know that asylum seekers are rapists. Why on earth were the one that's covered up?
Absolutely, it should be out there. I mean, you know, obviously there's much higher standards for libel and things like that in the US than there are in the UK. But, you know, I think this underscores the importance of the industry that we're all in as journalists, is trying to uncover things like that.
Yeah, top-class journalism from the Sun. No surprise that you came from there. Absolutely. GB, lucky to have you now.
Sarah, what a way to finish the night. Thank you so much.
So, quite clear there. No, it wouldn't surprise me, ladies and gentlemen, if he was doing that with your legal aid tax money. No surprise there if they tried to use the legal aid tax money in order to obscure his quote-unquote asylum seeker status, because I'll never ever believe that these people are asylum seekers. No, when you've got caches of weapons being found in Calais, as we talked about last time. No, when you've got potentially Afghani special forces aiding in the boat crossings and the human trafficking that we talked about last time as well. We'll never ever believe that these genuine asylum seekers know they're a political enforcement arm being acting, whether they realize it or not, on behalf of the UN. There'll be the fucking peacekeeper troops and all the rest of it, right? There'll be a foreign disruption agent for them to bring the peacekeeper troops in and subdue all of us, right? Like the frigging capital coming into the districts in Hunger Games, right? And take away your children and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that exactly is going to happen, but to bring in that control, to bring in that level of control. Absolutely. So yeah, there you go. He threw a coat over a 15-year-old girl's head and viciously raped her. And they tried to, in order to preserve and keep his immigration status a secret, very likely he was claiming legal aid to do that because, obviously we know these people, ladies and gentlemen, they get everything at a taxpayer expense. The one big lie, right, is that they have to get by on £10 a week or £48 a week or whatever when they conveniently leave out that every other fucking expense that we have to pay is paid for them by us, right? Or by the taxpayer, right? So everything is paid for by them. It's designed to make you feel sorry for them when there's really no need to be. Because you could get by on the same amount of money if everything else was taken care of for you, ladies and gentlemen, trust me. You could get by on literally nothing. So he's obviously not got his own money to pay for his own lawyers, so where's it going to be coming from? It'll be coming from the legal aid, which is also paid for by you. But when it's thought crime, when it's British people that are fighting wrong speak convictions and all the rest of it, do they get legal aid? No, of course not. Of course not. Says it all, ladies and gentlemen, says it all. Right, another thing I wanted to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So, rounding out now, Antifa. Reason why I wanted to bring this up, it's important. One of the things I learned recently is that people in union chats, unions dominate this country. Unions dominate everything in Britain at the moment, to our great detriment. And unions have been some of the biggest political enforcement arms within the public sector occupations, right? All the political stuff that you're seeing, all the woke stuff, the trans stuff in the NHS, the Islam stuff, all of this inclusivity stuff, etc., has been pushed through by unions. I think one of the biggest ones in the country is Unison. Somebody let me know recently that in the chats revolving around the union that they were in, somebody had posted one of the banners that Antifa have been using and advising people to use it and circulating literal Antifa propaganda throughout these union chats and stuff like that, right? So you're seeing where a lot of these unions and all stuff like that, they're outright communists, right? Funny thing is, I watch Peaky Blinders at the moment, and we've just been introduced to the union character. What's her name? Jesse Eden, right? You know, the stuck-up communist bitch. They now dominate the country, and they're obviously pushing through all of this political stuff. Many of them are outright freaking communist. And then you wonder why we're in the situation that we're in when the government gets so much power and trade unions get so much power. If you say the wrong thing, and in many instances now, it's actually stopped this person from using a Facebook account and for posting any political opinions or anything like that, as it's likely to get them into trouble. And we've seen Antifa. Right, Antifa, they are not in any way scared of resorting to violence, resorting to murder. We've seen that with Andy Ngo, who infiltrated Antifa, the Portland cell of Antifa in Portland, Oregon, in the US. Very nearly got killed, right, when he was exposed. There was one of the images of him with a milkshake over his face where one had been thrown at him. Well, you've got to imagine it's that full of concrete, right? But he actually wrote a book about Antifa. I've yet to read it yet. But they're violent, they're just pure communist revolutionaries at their heart. They're more in common with the fascists that they claim to be against than actual, anti-fascists, if you will, who, if you have a look at the song which they often sing, Bella Ciao, if you have a look at the last lyric of the song, ladies and gentlemen, if I bring up Bella Ciao a minute, if I bring up the last lyric for the song, it says, "Who died for liberty." You will see the partisan. See if I can find it here. Is it this one? Yep. Here you go. This is the flower of the partisan who died for freedom. Morto per la libertà. Antifa about freedom? No, of course. But one of the things they've been doing recently, ladies and gentlemen, which is why you should be against Antifa, if nothing else, why Trump has designated them a terrorist organization, why they should be designated a terror organization in the UK alongside BLM and their other Marxist counterparts, is that Antifa recently in America, this is one example of the heinous things that they've done. Right, one example of the heinous things that they've done. They've been attacking journalists. They've been doing all manner of other things, rioting, causing all manner of disruption. The murder, the outright murder of Aaron Danielson, I believe it was. Let me just double check. I believe it was Aaron Danielson. Yes. Aaron Danielson, yep, was killed simply for being a Trump supporter. Was in Portland, was wearing, I believe it was a MAGA hat, and they said, "Look, we got a Trump supporter." Bang, bang, shot in the middle of the street.
Not really. It kind of scares me.
So, yeah, one of the biggest things on Stephen Crowder's Changed My Mind when he was talking about the left is violent recently on one of the campuses he went back to. Was one of the biggest things. He showed the video. It says, look, we got a Trump supporter, bang, bang, dead. That's it. So they forced an OHSU hospital in Portland to divert away the air ambulance helicopters. All these people seeming to be for the poor and for state health care, universal health care, all the rest of it. They diverted away an air ambulance because they were planning to shine lasers into the sky, ladies and gentlemen. They're messing with federal helicopters, but now hospitals and hospital helicopters are impacted due to massive safety concerns. So make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, they try to ooze empathy, they try to do all this stuff, right? They're not empathetic in any way whatsoever, in any way, shape or form. They're communist revolutionaries at their heart, right? And even going now to show that just because they want to shine some fucking lasers into the frigging sky, like the immature little children they are, they'll divert away urgent need hospital helicopters from landing at hospitals. This is disgusting.
2 News has learned that some people are planning to shine lasers into the sky this weekend in an attempt to ground federal helicopters. This comes after there's been multiple arrests in recent days for laser pointing, both at police and federal aircraft. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Dunn.
I'm Deborah Knapp. K2 is now working to confirm what group is trying to coordinate these efforts to bring down federal helicopters. K2's Thanvi Verma joins us live now from the ICE facility in South Portland. What is happening right now, Thanvi?
So, Deb, things are not only peaceful, but they're very lighthearted. If you look behind me, you can see people have come out in costumes. You have people dressed up as pickles, bananas, frogs, even a hot dog. And at least one protester tells me he hopes things remain peaceful just like this. Protests outside the ICE facility have been going on for months. On Friday, K2 News got word of a possible new tactic, a call to shine lasers into the sky to ground federal helicopters that are flying over South Portland. Ron Magnus is a flight instructor in Washington County. He warns of the dangers of pointing lasers into the sky.
The dangers primarily are blindness on the part of the people flying the airplanes, the pilots and the other crew members.
The FBI writing on its website, when laser beams are aimed at any piloted aircraft, whether military or commercial, what might seem like a tiny beam on the ground can blind aircrew, potentially causing a mid-air collision or other incident.
In terms of shining lights at them, it's not something that I'd participate in.
At the ICE facility, one protester tells me he's not on board.
I think there are better avenues for getting our message out, like more effective resistance.
A spokesperson for the Portland Police Bureau tells us they regularly arrest people who target police aircraft.
So you see here, ladies and gentlemen, that video is mostly centering on the federal and police aircraft. It was outside of the ICE facility. There is a post here, however, from KATU News, a call to shine laser lights into the sky to ground federal helicopters that have been flying over South Portland is sparking major concerns, and the possible danger is preventing air ambulances from landing at OSHU on Saturday. OHSU diverts emergency flights ahead of possible laser party targeting helicopters. Flyers circulating online called on people to shine lasers at federal helicopters, and OHSU said air ambulances will not land at their helicopter landing pad on Saturday night as a precaution. Here is what somebody put in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. So you can see here, for example, it says here, again, they then, OHSU said air ambulances will not land at their helicopter landing pad on Saturday night as a precaution. So God forbid that anything was actually needed. God forbid it was actually needed, you know, because it could obviously result in somebody's death. So you shouldn't be shining lights at aircraft anyway. Obviously, that seems like it's an obvious thing, but these people don't care if that aircraft comes out of the sky and gets killed. They just see anybody at this point who's in a position of government, because it's an administration that they disagree with. They've been led to believe that it's a fascist administration by a mass propaganda machine, which has been very, very effective, and that's why they're killing people. They don't kill people because of the actual fascist threat, if you will. It's because they've been told that they're fascists dishonestly, because they want to kill people. They want political opponents to be killed. And people have gotten their recent talking points for this Antifa story, it seems, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm just trying to find the video now.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa.
Like, I don't even know what Antifa is. There is no group.
It's not even like far-right groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Compared to right-wing extremists, Antifa-linked violence is rare and limited.
It isn't an organization. It is a in many ways mythology.
It's not like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, sort of defined terrorist organizations with leadership that leads violence.
It's not a highly organized movement. It's a moniker. It's not a unified group like the Proud Boys are.
Things like Antifa are things that are thought up.
It's all in this guise of going after Antifa, which is nothing. There's no organization called Antifa.
Nobody's a member of Antifa because it doesn't exist. They are just declaring into existence something that doesn't exist.
There is no Antifa organization, so maybe that's good for social media. But it really is non-existent.
They exist on the internet in chat rooms and in 4chan and Discord and places like that, where they run discussion boards, trade tactics, documents, things like that. But none of them are called Antifa.
A bunch of them seem to have come out talking about Antifa and showing that, or saying that they're not even a group, they're not a centralized group with anything like that or whatever. And we know that they have membership, they have ways of recruiting, etc. It's a very well-run machine, as this person I'm about to talk about last, ladies and gentlemen, knows very, very well. Stephen Crowder, who with parts of his crew infiltrated Antifa many, many years ago. Was one of the first people to really highlight their activities and their, status as terrorists, if you will, and highlight them as the terrorists that they are. But recently, Stephen Crowder was a video that came up on my feed, and I wanted to play it, ladies and gentlemen, because it perfectly highlights why people who are in this thing now where it's government's going to help us. You need to understand that the government wants you to stay poor so that you stay reliant on them. They don't want you to have the opportunities to succeed, right? They don't want anybody to have the opportunities to succeed and have families, etc., because then you will be an affront to them. Okay, that's why they need to keep you exactly where they want you in order so they remain necessary to you. It's like the epitome of an abusive relationship. It's perfectly encapsulated in this video by Stephen Crowder. I want to play you this section. It's from a larger video. It's about 13, 15 minutes in to this video. It's actually talking about Taylor Swift, of all things. I want to play you this, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a very good representation of why the government needs to keep itself relevant and how it's going to do it, namely by making you and keeping you in a state of perpetual poor. Meanwhile, they get richer and richer and richer off the back of it, right? Especially in America, where they have all the insider trading and Nancy Pelosi having one of the greatest stock portfolios ever seen, right? But the concepts, the ideas are across all of the government, especially what we're seeing now with one of the hardest left-wing administrations potentially coming into Wales at the moment, which is Plaid. That's why every time you see government this, government that, government's going to give you this, government free, government that, it's not free, obviously, it's all coming off the back of the freaking taxpayer, but they're doing everything to this. They want to make you think, look how good we are, but we're keeping you in that state of poor, in that state of reliance, because it's exactly where we want you, right? They're keeping you, the government, exactly where they want you and making you think that it's a good thing. And this is why.
Look, let's do it. Let me make 2 points here, okay, before we get on to the climate hypocrisy. She is the single biggest carbon emitter of any human being on Earth. 3 years running, that's true. But first off, the policy, right? The left is encouraging this as a matter of policy, childless cat lady, okay? So if J.D. Vance says, hey, I think it's better for our country to strengthen families, a nuclear family, because that's the bedrock, the building blocks of our communities before state and federal government, local government. Before that, you have the family, right? That would mean that the party would want to encourage that kind of a culture. If you have a party saying childless cat ladies are boss bitches, that would mean they want to encourage that as part of a culture. I've said this before. If the Republicans are the party of the rich, which we know is not true, but again, you don't win it with just the billionaire vote, right? That gives you like 5. That would mean that you would need a significant portion of Americans to be wealthy enough to vote Republican. If the Democrats are the party of the poor, and by that we mean people who don't pay federal taxes, we don't mean middle class, we mean poor, we mean non-contributors, then they need you to stay poor. Otherwise, if they bring you into success, they've now brought you out of their voting block. It's the same thing here. Even if you don't like what J.D. Vance has said, he is saying, yeah, I would like to, if I could, encourage this kind of a lifestyle because I believe that it is better for America and for individuals. Of course, they should make their own decisions. Democrats are saying you will be just as happy as a childless cat lady at 35 as you would if you had a family and meaningful relationships. No, here's another point that, well, Gerald, you were about to say something.
No, I just...
I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely fantastic illustration of what's going on and literally putting it as plainly as you can see, right? They want you to stay poor because if they allow you to get some element of success, they allow you to keep more of your own money, they allow you to actually attain some element of prosperity, they're going to progress you out of themselves as a voting bloc, out as a voter for them, right? Which is why you see, for the most part, people who are at the very, very top of society, some elements of the billionaires and etc., most of them overwhelmingly vote for the left, and then people at the very bottom most overwhelmingly vote for the left. The people in the middle is really where most people actually want to aspire to be, at the very least. If you're in the very bottom, you want to at least, for the most part, aspire to get to the next rung up, right? You at least want to keep climbing the ladder, whether you're going to get to mega billionaire status, mega supervillain of the universe, who knows? That's not the point. Most people just want to be comfortable enough to be able to live comfortably, maybe to have 1 or 2 holidays a year, have a few kids, keep on the lineage, and have something to pass down for them, and live a life of purpose. Hard to do that when you're destitute on the street. But you see there, ladies and gentlemen, if they allow you, especially if you're sort of like on the very, they want to keep you as poor as possible, especially if you're in that lower bracket. They want to keep you there because you're guaranteed votes. That's why, again, all of these programs which the government run, A, they're not free, which is the biggest lie that's ever been sold that people still believe. They're not free because you are paying for them, or if not, somebody else is paying for them, right? And you got to think, why the hell should somebody have to pay for you? Right? Everybody in theory has to make their own way. Somebody else has to pay for you. Why shouldn't you have to pay for somebody else? Right? But not only that, the more of this stuff which you give to the government, the more power you give them, the more they're going to use it to restrain you and keep you in place. It's a very, very Faustian bargain, ladies and gentlemen, and one which we could definitely do without. So think about that. Whenever Plaid, they've been touting this at the moment, all the free health care and all of this stuff. Ask yourself, why do we need the government to do this? And again, it's a lie first off because it's not free. Why do we need the government to do this, ladies and gentlemen? Why do people need health care? And then you ask, why do people need to work 2 jobs? Or why do both parents need to be working? Why have we allowed this economy to be created where both parents need to work? And you see, it's because we don't want to acknowledge that the very bedrock of society and the number one opposition tool that people have, the number one institution that is in opposition to a tyrannical government, is the nuclear family. People don't want to admit that because of how feminized our society has become. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. So I think that's where, again, we can blame the government all we want for all these problems. But it starts with us as our societal values. And it won't change unless we change. It won't change unless everybody's individual attitudes change. And that will make our societal attitudes change. And that then will have changes on our government. Because ultimately the government is just going to be a reflection of the society for the most part. For the most part, because society who votes them in. So you're seeing in some areas now where they've imported mass areas of foreigners, you're seeing that not because people who are coming in from foreign backgrounds are voting in their own foreign sectarian interests. That's a different problem. But in terms of the native people voting for their own destruction, you're embracing these feminist worldviews and feminist policies. So you're seeing now it was always to destroy Western society. Because it was always to destroy the good and well-ordered, virtuous world. Because when you trace feminism back to its origins, you trace it back ultimately to, you trace it back to Wiccan and paganism. Ultimately, for one certain worldview happens to be true, where would that all be originating from? It'd be originating from some kind of demon and Satanism, be originating from the devil himself. So again, when you have a worldview that's coming from those things which are already, you could argue, the, results of not good things, I don't necessarily think all forms of paganism are, created equal, so to speak, if you will. It's kind of a, broad catch-all term for nature worship and all the rest of it, isn't it? But maybe there's something to be said for the way that we've turned in the modern day and the directions we've chosen to go in the modern day. But the other thing is, in the modern day, we've chosen to go so far, so fast down this path towards damnation. And we really have to start pulling the brakes back on it. And that starts with us as our personal attitudes and the way that we see the world. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. Obviously, feel free to, or make sure you check out the member section later on this evening, or later on whenever it is, for the exclusive interview that's going to be out Patreon locals and YouTube members with Corinne Cope, mother of the late Dylan Cope, who was a 9-year-old boy who lost his life to septic shock from a perforated appendix in December of 2022. Very, long and tragic tale of medical negligence and lessons being learned but not actually being learned. You should go check it out and lend support to Corinne and the campaigns. Check out the campaigns, which will be linked down in the description of that video as well. And do go check those out. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for watching. Hoyle, see you next time. You take care now. Godspeed.